الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب السماوات ورب الأرض رب العالمين، وله الكبرياء في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. الحمد لله الذي بنعمته تتم الصالحات. ربنا لك الحمد حتى ترضى، ولك الحمد إذا رضيت، ولك الحمد بعد الرضا. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيد الأولين والآخرين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ملك الحق المبين. أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صفيه من خلقه وخليله وأمين على وحيه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, all praise and glory and thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everything we have. وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِّعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. So make sure that you do your best to express your gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be grateful to Allah for His countless bounties and gifts and favors. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. And all our needs are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do your best to beg Allah, to make dua and supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance, for forgiveness, for protection, for health, for rizq, for everything that you need is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, we are always getting closer and closer to the day we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So make sure that you actively prepare for that big meeting, big day. It's not the day of judgment, it's the time we leave this life. Because مَنْ مَاتَ قَامَتْ قِيَامَتُهُ. The rest of the time is frozen time. So do not be tricked that it's a day of judgment and it's far away. No, it's not. It's the moment we leave this life, and that can happen at any time. There is a countdown and we don't know how much is left. Just need to always take advantage of the time that we have. So we need to appreciate the time that we have, both to live this life and also to prepare to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every day is a new day, and every day is an extended day for you to take advantage of it, to be better prepared. Unfortunately, we keep watching what's going on in Gaza. It's a massacre, genocide, unprecedented. The whole world is saying that, and the whole world is shocked, but unable to stop it. And Muslims, of course, we're watching helplessly, and that's revealed the level of weakness that 1.5 billion Muslims cannot stop this extermination of whole populations. Just imagine, in cold like this, people are in the tents and under the rain, and it's beyond imagination. And unfortunately, we found ourselves only making dua, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate their suffering and to make it easier on them and to stop one way or another this ongoing massacre and genocide. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, we really need to remind each other that we are blessed to have a great religion. The religion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us is something, it's the biggest favor. It's hard even to see which one is bigger favor. Is it life itself or religion? And if life, it's even worth it without Islam. That's the level that our faith should reach, the point that we cannot imagine life without it. This is a great deen that shows us the way to happiness and success, both in this life and in the hereafter. It's not the deen of the hereafter. It's not the deen of poverty or suffering. It's a religion that promises its followers and shows them the way to succeed in this life and live the happiest life, and also to be among the winners on the day of judgment. And that's at the level of the individual, the level of the community and the level of society in general. If that is not happening, for us as individuals or families or communities, then we have to question whether or not we are on the straight path. Now we pray in every rak'ah to Allah to guide us to Sirat al-Mustaqim. That Sirat al-Mustaqim, straight path, guides, leads to happiness and success in this life and in the hereafter. If you don't find yourself, if you don't see those results, then we need to question whether we are or whether or not we are on the straight path. Now, how does Islam guarantees these results that Islam promises? Number one, there are a number of things that Islam does to ensure the happiness and success of its followers in this life and in the hereafter. Number one, first and foremost, Islam gives you a mission and purpose in life. And that's big. That's big when you start living for something higher or bigger than your own life. So Islam gives life a purpose and gives its followers a mission. What is that? The mission is, in fact, muradillah, is to fulfill the purpose of Allah, and the goal, the ultimate goal, is to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with you. Why this is important and how this is related to those results that I mentioned? Because this by itself streamlines and focuses your life, your thinking, your priorities, your decisions. Now there is a reference. You have something that makes you collected person. There are no internal dispute or no internal issues. Why? Because you have one purpose, ultimate purpose, that guides all your thinking, all your decisions, and all your priorities. So that's a great blessing from this religion, that it gives our life a sense of, it gives purpose, and they call it nowadays, it's very much praised, this idea of purpose-driven life. That someone who lives on purpose or lives for a purpose, and someone or mission-driven life, that's something that Islam promises and guarantees. Number two, Islam is a religion of balance and moderation. يعني دين الاعتدال والتوازن, moderation and balance. Islam strikes balances, very delicate balances that people are struggling to strike. This religion helps us striking those balances. The first one is the balance between physical, the three compartments of the individuals, of a human being: the physical, the spiritual, and the intellectual. Islam emphasizes the importance of all three and strikes a great balance between them. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فآتي كل ذي حق حقه. Your body need to take good care of it, your spirit, your intellect, etc., as we're going to be explaining, inshallah. Spiritual, intellectual, and physical. A lot of Muslims fail to strike this balance. A lot of Muslims are either neglecting spirituality or neglecting the needs for their intellect and their mind to be fed with knowledge, as your body needs to be fed with food. So, for the physical, and unlike what we heard a lot of time, unfortunately, that from people who say that this whole dunya is not important, this whole life, and then they don't emphasize the importance of the physical well-being. Islam makes that a religious obligation. It is a religious duty to take good care of your body. It's not just to impress people or to look good. To be healthy is a religious duty. This is something that Allah has entrusted you with to manage it. It belongs to Allah, it's not yours. So taking good care of your body Islam makes it a religious obligation. And that means, very simply, means eating healthy and healthy habits, sleeping. A lot of people, unfortunately, they don't have very good sleeping habits, even though Islam almost is pushing us to sleep early and wake up early. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts Fajr prayer, that time, it is meant that you wake up and you don't go back to sleep. That's how it's helping us having those good habits. So eating healthy, having healthy life habits, exercising regularly, and doing regular checkups. These are not something good to do only. These again are religious obligations. Alhamdulillah, more and more Muslims are becoming more aware. I hear this nowadays better than before. When it comes to what to eat and people exercising, it's not as good as it should be, but still there is a good progress, but we still have a lot of bad habits of eating habits, sleeping, and also being lazy not to exercise simply because it is not convenient, it's not in our culture, and that has to change. That has to change, especially that we live in a country where this is part of their daily life. And also, especially that we live in a stressful environment and stressful time. So the need to take good care of your body becomes even greater. When your body is subject to that much stress, the need for you to take good care of it becomes even greater. So taking good care of your health is a religious obligation. And if you do it with the right intention, it's an act of worship. You will be exercising and you're as if you are praying. You are performing, it's an act of worship if you do these things with the proper intention. Plus, it is also part of you developing yourself into a role model. You know, one of the main obligations of a Muslim to develop yourself into a role model, to be qudwa to people. And part of you being a role model is to maintain a good health. People look up for someone who is successful whether in career, successful in health, successful. That's where it makes people ready to listen to you, or ready to accept your mentorship or your advice. And the healthier you are, the more you can do fi sabilillah. So this is the vehicle that you use to serve the cause. What kind of person, if people become ill, a lot of illness and very unhealthy conditions, what can they do? They become actually sometimes maybe a burden on families or communities, not even able to contribute. Now, if it is happening, if it is beyond your control, that's something else. We're talking about people who are reckless about their health, to end up no checkups, no exercise, bad eating habits, and they end up in a terrible health condition. That's not allowed. So that's the beauty of this religion, when it takes these things and make them a religious obligation, so that you are not torn apart between the requirement of this life and the requirement of religion. No, it's one and the same. That's the physical part. The spiritual, our iman is not something that we should take for granted. Iman, as the Rasul ﷺ says, goes up and down. It is something that has to be maintained and strengthened whenever it is possible, especially when you have the opportunity to do that, like Ramadan, for example. That's an opportunity to upgrade. The rest of the year, at least you maintain. Iman, faith, need to be taken good care of it. Otherwise, it will wear out, as Rasul ﷺ says, إن الإيمان لا يبلى كما يبلى الثوب ألا فجددوا إيمانكم. That Iman tends to wear out like clothes. So what's the solution? Renew it, refresh it. Every now and then, refresh it and renew it. And again, if you have the opportunity to upgrade it, that's even better. Now, how does this help? How does this help families, communities, societies, in addition to the individual? Iman, the stronger your Iman, the greater is your motivation to do good. The stronger your Iman, the greater is your motivation to do good. And that's good for the community and good for the society. If you have greater incentive to do good, to contribute to the greater good or the common good. That's good for the family, good for the community, and good for the society. So Iman gives you that strength and that motivation. And strengthen your ability to restrain yourself. Make you policing yourself. You don't need somebody to be watching over you. Why? Because Allah is watching over you. More important than anything else. So it gives you that ability to restrain yourself. Even if something that you can do, you still restrain yourself from doing it just because it is haram and it is harmful. You're not going to do it. That strength, self-restraint, is at the heart of taqwa. The ability to restrain yourself, control your tongue, not to harm people, and control yourself not to do anything that will hurt or harm people. So you can see, you work on your iman, and the benefit is coming to everybody else. It's coming to the community, it's coming to the society. Why? Because we have individuals who are more motivated to do good and more able to restrain themselves. Just imagine, in a society, everybody has a policeman follow with him. That's it. That's the case. When we have that idea that Allah is watching over us and we have that ability to restrain ourselves, we are basically policing ourselves. And that's again for the benefit of the community and the benefit of the society. Now, if you think about it, successful nations, they may not have Islam, but they managed to find this formula. The most successful nations consist of citizens who have the incentive to do what they're supposed to do, at least respect the law, do their work diligently, they have work ethics. That's the most prosperous nations. And they have the discipline. Very disciplined people. Look at any successful nation, regardless. Even countries like Japan, who don't have even a religion, but they're successful because of this. So that's something that Islam gives us. Gives us that when you are at work, you perfect your work because it is a religious obligation. And that's for the benefit of everybody. And then you try to maximize, because the essence of our mission as Muslims is to maximize our contribution to the greater good. So you have a religious obligation to make your society a better place and make your community a better community. You have a religious obligation to do that. So it's an amazing, as I said, so powerful how Islam meshed together the requirements, the physical, the spiritual, and the intellectual, and this life and the world and the hereafter, etc. So other people may do it because of culture. They do what they're supposed to do. Again, they respect the law. They do their work diligently. They have the discipline. They do it because that's their culture, or because the system forced them to do that. And we have another greater incentive to do it. We do it because of our faith, or at least we are supposed to do it. We do what we're supposed to do because not only culture or civic duty, but because it is also a religious duty. So it is really powerful engine, Islam, powerful engine that propel us and prompt us to do good and to strengthen our brakes to restrain ourselves. You want to check your iman? Check these two things. Check how motivated you are to do good and how capable of restraining yourself. The stronger are your brakes, the better is your iman. The more motivated to do good, the better is your iman. If you find that motivation went low and your brakes are no longer strong, then that's an indication that your iman needs to be renewed, maybe needs to be refreshed. When it comes to the intellectual, that's a dilemma. This is the deen of Iqra. Quran is full of verses in which Allah is asking us to think, to contemplate, to reflect, and praises those who think and contemplate and reflect. And the first few verses that were revealed from the Quran, they are all about knowledge. Iqra, Allama, Al-Qalam, So it's all knowledge, pen, read, it's all about this. So knowledge and learning should be very high for Muslims. Unlike the current situation, where the numbers and statistics are really embarrassing on how much Muslims, on average, how much they read. It's very shameful and very embarrassing. It's never too late to change habits. Habits can change. Don't say, this is the way I am. This is the way I am. I usually don't read. No, that's a habit that you chose to do it. You chose to do it, it became habit. And it can be changed. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to change habit, but it's doable. Force it on yourself for a few weeks, and then it becomes your second nature. You will find yourself at the point where you cannot afford it. But one day passes by without reading something or learning something new. That's the attitude of the true believer, as the Rasul described. This thirst for knowledge and for wisdom is the attitude of the true believers. Al-hikmah dalatul mu'min. Always Muslims are on the look for knowledge and for wisdom. For themselves, to implement it and to share it. And when you do that, you do the job of the Prophet, because that was the job of the Prophet. The job of the Prophet was teaching. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمْ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمْ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Teach his companions. You want to be like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? You should be in the business of learning and sharing. And should have developed that thirst for knowledge and for reading and learning, and forget about this idea that learning stops after you graduate. It's a lifelong learner. Learn about everything. Learn about health, learn about your deen, learn about spousal relationship, learn about parenting, learn about this world, learn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you this and made one of the criteria that distinguish you from other creations so that it to be used, not to be frozen. Unfortunately, throughout our history, there are a lot of schools of thoughts that are calling to freeze the mind of Muslims or to cancel it or to cripple. That's not true. Our religion came to free our mind. The divine guidance is not a substitute for our thinking. Al-Wahy is meant to enlighten your thinking, to enlighten and guide, not to cripple or to freeze your mind or to be substitute for thinking. We still keep hearing that all the time. Islam is not by logic. No, that's not true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in all verses, even when Allah is telling us that this is haram, Allah explains the reason for that. Even though He doesn't have to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains why drinking was forbidden. Gives the reason. Why? To train our mind to have that critical mind and critical thinking and ask why. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains things, nobody else should say this is right because I said so. No? So learning this idea of being thirsty for knowledge and learning and having that critical mind, always in reflection, contemplation, and also there is nothing that should be taken for granted. Even the Quran, as I mentioned before the khutbah, even the Quran, most of its verses accept more than one interpretation. So after Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, kullun yu'khadhu minhu wa yurad. Everybody needs to, when I say something, they need to convince. You cannot say, because I know more than you take my word. We should stop this idea of raising generation who are ready to follow blindly. Because following blindly, it's like worshipping. One meaning of worshipping is to follow someone blindly. It's a form of shirk that we should not do. So we have a bigger obligation to have that critical thinking more than anybody else. So a true Muslim should be thirsty for knowledge and wisdom, as the Prophet described him. And if you are not reading and learning regularly, that's a problem. And that needs to be fixed. That's a problem even in your standing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're talking about if your ultimate purpose is to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleased with you, Allah will not be pleased by someone who is not learning. Who is not learning, because He gave you this important tool to feed it. And as you feed your body with food, you feed your mind with knowledge. And you use it. Use it to think and contemplate and reflect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises those who reflect on the creation of the world. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. One verse in Surah Al-Imran mentions, praises those ulil albab. These are, Allah is praising them. They do what? One, they remember Allah in all situations, whether standing or sitting or lying down. It's just another eloquent way to say they always remember Allah. And two, they contemplate and reflect on the creation of the world. One verse puts the spiritual and the intellectual in the same place. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا. And that increases and strengthens their iman. Islam is also the religion of freedom. Why? Because it frees people. When it makes you exclusively worshipping Allah and nothing else, it's a religion of Tawheed. When you become servant of Allah only, that will free you from everything else. Nobody can enslave you. Why? Because it frees you from greed, becoming money worshipper, that become weakness, that people, you can be enslaved through it. You control your desires, you cannot be enslaved through that path. There is no anxiety. You do your best and you put your trust in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so being anxious about the future and about your job and about rizq, etc. None of this. You work hard as everybody else or harder, but still you put your trust, you accept the outcome. Should be very ambitious, but at the same time content, qanua, that you accept the outcome. You work hard, and that's not an easy balance. Because a lot of people, it's easier to go to one of the extremes. It's easier to become a money worshipper and obsessed with this world, and it's also easier to say that this is not important, or in the name of qada and qadar and the name of qana'a, you accept the situation that you can do better. That's not acceptable. So it's a great balance between working as hard or harder than, but at the same time, money is always in your hand. You're working for money as a tool. It should never become as a goal. Working for money, to make more money, to be rich. All of this is legitimate, and probably it's your duty to do that. But also at the same time, it is because to satisfy the needs, your needs and the needs of your family, but also to do more fi sabilillah. That should be your guiding principle. You're working not to become money worshipper, it's remain as a tool, so that you can do more fi sabilillah. Same thing for planning and tawakkul. This is a balance that is very delicate to strike, and majority of Muslims, they go one way or the other. You need to do both. Most of us know the hadith of aqilha wa tawakkul. Somebody came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, I have a camel. Should I tie it up, or should I just leave it and put my trust in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Rasul ﷺ told him to do both. Tie your camel and then put your trust in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very simple. Aqilha wa tawakkul. You want to do something, do your diligent work, plan. Plan very carefully as if you are relying on your plan, as Rasul ﷺ did when he migrated from Mecca to Medina. But after that, put your trust in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for things that are beyond your control. Not to take care of things that you can do, to take care of things that are beyond your capacity and beyond your control. These are some of the great blessings and favors that our great religions empowers us if we properly understand it and take it seriously. وَتُوبُ إِلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه. نعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. Dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, inshallah we'll continue. We'll be talking inshallah next time about the role of akhlaq and the emphasis of Islam on akhlaq and how this can benefit also communities and families and societies in an amazing way if we stick to the manners of Islam and the characters, خلق الإسلام and the adab of Islam. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا توفنا وانت راض عنا واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا واجعل خير أعمالنا خواتمها وخير أيامنا يوم نلقاك ومتعنا اللهم بالنظر إلى وجهك الكريم. ربنا ارحم والدينا كما ربونا صغارا وارحم موتانا وجميع موتى المسلمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وأقم الصلاة.